Welcome back everyone for another zipper sewing video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to hand sew a centered zipper, which is also called a hand-picked zipper. I consider a hand-sewn zipper to be a really high-end and special finish for a garment. But truthfully, it's really super simple to sew. Let me show you how it's done. If I were doing this on a for real garment instead of just making a sample, I would use a matching zipper as well as matching thread, but for the purposes of this video, I will use contrasting thread and a contrasting zipper so that it's easier for you to see. You will notice that I already have the fabric edges finished where the zipper will be inserted. The first thing we want to do is place the fabric right sides together and stitch a seam at the seam allowance specified by your pattern. We are going to use a long basting stitch where the zipper will be inserted, then back tack at the zipper notch, and then switch to a regular stitch length for the remainder of the seam. Your seam allowance is probably 5/8 of an inch, but it might be 1/2 of an inch depending on the pattern. I'm starting out using a 5.0 stitch length where the zipper will be inserted because this is just a basting stitch and we will remove it later. There should be some sort of marking on your pattern to indicate where the end of the zipper will be. Once you reach the marking, switch to a regular 2.5 stitch length, back tack, and then finish sewing the rest of the seam. Next, let's head to the ironing board and press the seam open, nice and flat using steam. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you probably already know that washaway seam tape is one of my all-time favorite sewing tools. So don't worry, I won't disappoint you now. That's what I'm going to use again to secure the zipper before we hand stitch it. I'm going to apply the washaway seam tape along the seam allowance edges where the zipper will be inserted. If you'd like to help support my channel and the sewing videos that I'm creating, please consider purchasing your own washaway seam tape using my affiliate link in the description below. At some point, I plan on creating a whole video just talking about some of the different uses for washaway seam tape. Once you peel off the paper layer on top of the washaway seam tape, that will reveal a sticky side where you can stick down your zipper to hold it in place for us to hand stitch it. After the seam tape is applied, carefully lay your zipper face down so that the zipper coil lies directly on the seam line. Take some time to make sure you have your zipper placed exactly how you'd like it. A little pressure with your fingers will be enough to secure the zipper in place before we go to hand sew it. Now let's get to the fun part. For hand sewing, I've been holding on to a 30-pack of assorted Dritz needles, and they have lasted me a really long time. The thread I'm using is simply all-purpose polyester sewing thread. I'm using a single strand of thread that's about the length of my forearm, which is knotted at the end. I'm going to take my first stitch starting at the very bottom of one side of the zipper tape. The trick to doing a hand-picked zipper is that you want to try and only pick up just a few threads of fabric on the underside of the zipper. I'm going to place my other hand underneath the fabric so that I can feel when the needle has just barely poked through to the other side. With just that tiniest little bit of the needle point poked through, I will pivot it back up and pull my needle up through both the fabric and the zipper. I'm making each of my stitches about 1/4 of an inch apart, and it's pretty easy to make sure your stitches are in a straight line because you can simply follow one of the lines in the zipper tape. Again, the goal here is to pick up just the tiniest amount of fabric with each stitch. You should just barely feel the point of the needle poking through underneath before you pivot it back up through the fabric and the zipper. When you flip over your fabric to the right side of the garment, you should see just some really tiny stitches showing. My first stitches were a little big, but if I were using matching thread, you wouldn't even see them. Continue stitching in the same way along the entire length of the zipper tape. Once I come all the way to the end of the zipper tape, I take 2 or 3 stitches into the zipper tape and knot them. When I flip over to the right side of my garment, you will see that you can barely even see the tiny little stitch marks. If I had used a matching thread color, you wouldn't see these at all. Now, all we have to do is complete the exact same step on the opposite side of the zipper. Lastly, we need to take a seam ripper and go back and remove the basting stitches along the seam where the zipper is inserted. And that's all there really is to it. Now we have a beautiful hand-picked zipper. If you found this video useful, I hope you will like it and subscribe to my channel so that you are notified when I release new sewing videos. I also hope you will consider making a purchase of one of the sewing tools I used in this video by using my affiliate links in the description below. Also, I need your help coming up with ideas for my next sewing videos. If you have a suggestion, please don't hesitate to drop me a comment below. That's all for me. Happy sewing, and I'll see you in the next video.